Elite Networks is a book about political power and inequality. My main argument is that the most important overlooked cause of inequality is the misuse of political power. Now, we had inequality ever since the agricultural revolution for the past 10,000 years. It's not a modern phenomenon. It's not tied to any economic system. Ancient civilizations, feudalism, capitalism, socialism, all these systems have had, at certain times, very high levels of wealth concentration at the top and misery for the rest. However, unlike today, in pre-industrial revolution times, widespread poverty was a constant. Think about it. How did people back then get rich? Violence. Okay, you either had the legitimacy to use violence, being a ruler, part of nobility, or clergy, or you went to wars because you were promised to keep the pillage. This is, by the way, how every noble family made their fortune at one time in history, through violent conquest. Today, especially after the second half of the 20th century, we got an unprecedented increase in societal wealth and living standards. Today, people can get rich with their own ingenuity, hard work, and competence. In other words, without violence, even though it still persists as a motive. But inequality also persists. We've changed so many social orders and finally made ourselves, on average, rich as a human race, but we get unequal distributions of wealth, income, and opportunities. Naturally, many of these inequalities are due to some people simply being better at what they do, more innovative, more special than others. This is particularly observable for the so-called superstar effect, or you could even call it the influencer effect. Others are competing on the global market, so their compensations are necessarily higher than the wages of workers in the local market. And then there's the misuse of political power in order to get ahead and achieve wealth. That's the real issue. Not differences in income based on innovation or talent, but differences in outcomes based on proximity to power. This is encapsulated through elite networks, informal relationships between politicians in power on one hand, and owners of capital, or more importantly, corporate executives, or what Piketty calls super managers, on the other hand. The ties between them imply that executives use their friends in politics to get direct benefits for their firms, like direct government contracts or favorable regulation, for which they get rewarded with greater compensation. I found in my research that if a board member of a company is politically connected, on average he has a $150,000 higher salary than a board member who's not connected. Politicians, on the other hand, they get campaign donations, cushy board positions after their careers, and in corrupt countries, they also get a decent share of the loot. Now, how does this get translated into higher inequality? The inequality literature explicitly says that the top 1% and even the top 0.1% of income earners are most responsible for the huge earning differences between the top and the rest. While corporate execs are the bulk of this group. Now, if a huge part of their salary is tied to their political connections, it's clear where the root cause of inequality lies. Once again, that is the real issue. When elites misuse political power to get advantage, to get access to information and opportunity, and when corporations seek protection by the political process. It's very important to understand this difference. Now, think of big tech firms, right? No doubt they achieve their status and market dominance thanks to their innovations and the network externality effect, right? The more people use them, the more valuable they are. But now, when voters and policymakers want to limit their power, like, for example, using our private data and algorithms to anticipate our behavior, their response is to infiltrate into elite networks. They hire former politicians to utilize their networks to lobby for favorable regulation. This leads to huge between-firm differences, and research has shown that the highest-paid positions are always clustered in a handful of the most powerful corporations. And these corporations tend to get stronger and stronger by seeking political protection. Innovation made them rich at one point and powerful, and they deserved it, right? But now, a different phase of the life cycle begins. Preservation of status through the misuse of politics. In other words, innovators are turning into rent seekers. Knowing that long-run forces driving inequality were always rooted in extractive political power means a complete reimagining of its solutions. Don't increase centralized political power. That only worsens the outcome. Similarly, taxing the rich merely deals with the consequences. A top executive will benefit from proximity to political power regardless of their top marginal tax rate. An owner of a firm with political protection avoids any punishment for regular non-compliance. If we wish to truly lower inequality and prevent incentives of elite network formation, we must first and foremost lower centralized political power and re-empower the citizens and the community and we must do so by rebuilding trust and relying on the democratic trial and error mechanism. Obviously easier said than done, but let's try and find out how this can be attainable. Stick with me, subscribe to this channel, buy the book. I'll show you how, and you will learn so much, I promise you.